And here we go. Very good morning, everyone. Thursday, the 18th of June, 2026. Yesterday. Well, could we see it foreseen? I didn't foresee it, to be quite honest. And we'll start from the top in terms of the DXY to see exactly what went on. And pretty much we had that move to the highs. That was, we could argue, is pretty much forecast. We were expecting price to go up towards these areas before looking for a rejection or at least a reaction. We're there now in terms of anticipating that DXY strength during the day. I didn't foresee it, to be quite honest. I was actually going to short, no, I was going to long GU, which I'll show you guys in a moment. But in terms of DXY now, I believe perhaps it could be in an area for a bit of a turnaround. We're still in that higher time frame weekly order block, refined area. That 4 hour order block to perfection was wicked into it a couple of hours ago. So we can get rid of this one now, clean up the charts a little bit better, and then understand why we would be expecting a reaction from where price is at the moment. Price came up, gave us that rejection to the downside, break structure points to the left, and now after a period of time, price is back where price actually broke down from in the first place. So when we start to refine that higher time frame, 4 hour order block, here's where we are. So we tapped into that refined area beautifully yesterday or last night, and we've had that reaction from it again. Difficult when price moves like that from an area because there are no structure points on the way up. It's just a parabolic move towards those highs. So, in terms of looking, if I were going to look to short the DXY, then my structure point would have to be here. Anything less than that would be an aggressive type of position. But because we're using the DXY as just confluence, then we can anticipate, or I'm certainly anticipating, if price wants to return to this area, the highest area refined within that order block, we can say price has already done its job. Because price came into the refined 4 hour, 15-minute point of interest, all this now is simply confirmation. Of course, we haven't broken structure points, but on the lower time frames, if we were to go down to the 1 minute, we'd certainly see the structure points on the way up to the left-hand side here have now been broken. So using it as a confluence like so, I'm definitely interested in doing that. Hence why my alert is just below that 15-minute order block. And that reason for that is it is the only order block available. Now, with that said, we take a little bit of a zoom out. We can anticipate why the DXY may well want to push slightly higher. But as I said a couple of days ago, that as a result of using smart money concepts and order blocks, as a result of using this weekly order block to take price to the downside, I have to be still sell bias on the DXY from this order block until a weekly candle closes above it. It's as simple as that. So until I get that weekly candle close above that area, then indeed I will be looking to manipulate the DXY from that area for DXY weakness coming out of the market. Now, so that's where I am in the here and now. Of course, if price wants to return back down to some of these levels, then of course it would be much of the inverse, where as a result of being still within that higher time frame weekly order block, looking and refining my edge into the lower time frames where I believe using the DXY as confluence is more important, then of course as a result of this high in the market created, I would be expecting a bit of confirmation before a bit of a push towards the upside. However, we're here at the moment, so looking for price to return, and then even if price returns and then creates us a structure point like so, and then even if you were patient enough to wait for a move like that after structure starts to develop, and then at that point you then gain your confidence for your entry on the cross pair. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's also a very safe play in using the confluence, the DXY as a confluence in terms of exactly how you would want to trade it. For me personally, if this was a pair, they call this GU, I wouldn't want to be trading this just yet without having full confirmation of breakdown of structure in the opposite direction. So that's what we have for DXY at the moment. And I'll be as quick as I possibly can to roll through the interesting pairs that we have today. So GU, just a quick breakdown on GU and what I was looking for yesterday. So I had that session low in the market as a result of price failing to break below it for a considerable amount of time. Price was continuing to break above, or rather we had that move away. Price came back in. Simple as failing to break below. So it's a session low in the market. With that said, that session low was not supported by high time frame order blocks to take price towards the upward direction, aside from this 15-minute order block we had. So price came in, respected it beautifully, and you see my illustration still on there. Still wasn't good enough for me just for price to come into that order block, just like we've described on the DXY. You mark your refined areas, but still, I believe the confirmation is what saves you from pointless losses. Order block was there, price came in, didn't enter a long position straight away. I wanted price to show me something that I could be on the back of a trend in the direction that I want to trade. At that stage of price coming in, all what price was doing was making lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower low. Therefore, I understood if I take a long position, it could well just be lower high, lower low continuation. However, if I then had that break of structure, then I would indeed have looked to have taken a long position on GU. Nevertheless, we are here at the moment. We've had that breakdown on the market. So basically, the bias has flipped in the opposite direction. As a result of that bearish engulfing candle that wiped out, I'd say, a good couple of weeks worth of price action, or at least, no, it's 4 hour time frame, so a couple of days worth of price action, at least took out this low in May. So yeah, definitely a good couple of weeks. We have now a bearish engulfing candle that has given us a bearish order block towards the downside. So the only or 4 hour order block, well, not the only one, the most relevant one in my opinion, because we do have another 4 hour order block slightly higher. However, based on current price action on the 15-minute time frame, I think that this 15-minute order block is more relevant as opposed to, actually, no, I won't say that. This one is certainly much better. It's a lot higher. That would be your most type of patient approach. And that 15-minute order block, I'm sure, is refined within this 4 hour order block that we have just here. Let's put that on the chart so we can see it. There we go. So two positions. So therefore, two potential areas in the market where we could, must admit it, potentially lose money coming out of GU. However, based on what we have at the moment, I think it would be a good play to take GU short from that area. The only caveat to that, which I see, is weekly candle, weekly 50 MA. We previously closed above that weekly 50 MA. And as a result of testing that weekly 50 MA towards the downside already, as a result of that move, I feel like the recovery is going to then push us above that weekly 50 MA, even more so because today is Thursday. And then we have until tomorrow, close of business, for price to close above that weekly 50 MA, rejecting the weekly 50 MA towards the upside. So, in terms of the here and now, price also came into a lovely 4 hour order block we have down at the lows on the 4 hour time frame. We disclosed the reasons behind that yesterday. Refined 4 hour order, refined daily order block, refined down to the 4. And what I love to see at the moment is that this 15-minute order block is still available, meaning that there isn't there. I have not missed a potential position towards the upside. So I'd like price to come back down to this area. Hopefully, price gravitates beautifully on the 15-minute time frame. We'll get that break, pull back, and I'll look for the long, which I believe is the most probable, or I'd say the highest probable position in terms of using the 50 weekly 50 MA for tomorrow. So either way, but I'd be more inclined to take the shorts, excuse me, the longs apart aside from the shorts. So that's GU. Let me whiz for another pair so we can have a little bit more to grasp with. So that's GU for now. I'll run over some more GU charts later on this afternoon so you guys can see a little bit more in depth of what I'm talking about. GCAD. I like GCAD a lot. Finally, we've approached a higher time frame point of interest. That is by way of daily order block, and that daily order block as well is supported by wick imbalances from that weekly time frame. So it looks as if we're gravitating towards that. However, if there is a position sooner than that, we must react if you feel the need to do so. So when we look to refine this daily time frame order block down towards the left hand side, what we can also see is a previously mitigated 4 hour order block. I'm using the internet on my phone, so let's see if it's going to load. There we are. So 4 hour order block, the only 4 hour order block available within this leg. Move that to the right hand side, tapped into that once, Did it leave a 4 hour order block behind? Yes, it did. So let me see if I can start adding that here. And now let's put that to the right for us and see where that's come out. Okay, so perfect. Even better. So what I'll do is get rid of this one and understand we're now in that higher point of interest. So even better. So prices come into that area, and I've left my illustration on from yesterday. What I wanted to see was price really break down and particularly break that 4 hour 50 EMA. You see the performance from that 4 hour 50 EMA as a result of even not having any support areas to the left hand side where we could look to manipulate. We've still come in and rejected that 4 hour 50 EMA beautifully. So in an ideal scenario, what I would have liked was price to break down, break this 4 hour 50 EMA, and then pull back up. Nevertheless, we have had what I would consider a break of structure of some sort. And the way we come to that conclusion, we head over to our 15-minute time frame. What was happening on the 15-minute time frame? We did exactly the same yesterday. We seek to understand exactly where the most recent high was created and the higher low confirmed, and then can we get a break of that? This also is still from yesterday. We've had that breakdown in the market finally, so I'll get rid of that illustration now. And that breakdown has left us with a beautiful 15-minute order block. So what I'm looking to take at the moment, even before my session starts, see if I can find a lower time frame break of structure, and then I'll be looking to take that position a little bit before my trading day, simply because I am on the move today. As you can hear, I'm almost whispering in a hotel room, and I probably won't be as active as I'd like to be. So if this develops nicely for me, I'll look at taking that. But I hope you can see the difference between a breakdown in price. Finally, we can see it nicely illustrated. Key structure point as a result of making that high. Structure point broken, order block left behind, 15-minute. Looking for a lower time frame break of structure here. And then I'll be looking for a short position. If, I must say, a better position to take in the market, considering I would be early, would be looking for an Asia break of structure, or even better, if you see most recent price action to the left as well, have price break and then pull back. However, that has been done. So our confirmation in our setup is there. It's just down to your entry preference at this stage. If you'd like to take that as a limit order, you absolutely can. If you want to wait for a lower time frame break of structure, you absolutely can. It's what entry criteria you see fit. But for me, GCAD is something that I'd like to take almost immediately, I'll be honest, and see if I can move that to break even by at least the imbalance. So let's see how the cookie crumbles. I'd like price to move up slightly higher to allow me to have a much better stop loss, but 20 pips, 20 to 25 pips on GCAD is not too bad going at all. Considering my initial targets, you've guessed it, will be down to that 4 hour 50 MA, where even with 20 pips, I can get that 1 to 3 out of the market. So that's GCAD at the moment. As I said, if you don't want to take this position, wait for price to break in your trading session, break of Asia lows, come back, look for the short position from a new 15-minute order block, mind you, or alternatively, as I've said, wait for structure that has already been confirmed, but wait for structure to reconfirm itself, and then you'll have the added cherry on the cake that you are indeed trading in a 15-minute trend, and that's what you'd like to see. That's GCAD. I think that's probably one of the favorites that I've scanned through this morning, along with GU recovery for
Yeah,
that long.
I've got a limit order on GCAD in case it
There,
triggers while I'm driving to work.
there you
So
go.
it's already there.
Perfect. There you go, Rob. That's exactly it. The setup's confirmed. It's just how you want to take that entry. And even in the journal, at least you've got the bigger part of the pie, i.e., what am I trading? This is the setup, entry. It's based on your statistics. You keep entering the way you see fit, the way you're comfortable to do so. And then I think that's a really nice looking setup. So yeah, nice catch on that there, Rob. Love it. Let's see what else we have. EU. Again, bit annoying for EU. Really would have liked to have grabbed that on a pullback. But it is what it is. We're kind of seeing that. We see, as I said yesterday, we see where price is looking to go. But if there's no entry, like what we have on GCAD, we can't take it. For example, we see here how price is making those higher highs and higher lows, and it's the same process. I understood that in this element here, potential session low, but also a structure point. So therefore, what I wanted to see was price break down, pull back up, and then look for the short position down. It never happened. Therefore, although price absolutely melted in the direction that I would have loved price to have gone, there was no position. So pretty much back to the drawing board. However, the positions in terms of the shorts, they just move slightly lower for me as a result of this bearish engulfing candle on the 4 hour time frame. I'm now going to use the 4 hour order book left behind, and then that refined entry is right here up at those highs. However, in terms of the here and now, we're down at these lows. Perfect. Let's go to the 4 hour time frame to see why that makes sense. 4 hour time frame, if I seek to zoom out, there we go. In fact, that's gravitated towards the better 4 hour order book, in my opinion, because what we can do is take that as one long leg. Price eventually came all the way back down to that area, looking for a bit of a turnaround on lower time frames before looking to take price higher. So what do we have? 15-minute time frame. We're pretty much there. Price came into the area. The only thing, again, I must say I don't like is how price arrived there. I can't say hand on my heart that that's a structure point, or I can't really say with all confidence that's a structure point without going down to the lower time frames. So what I'd be inclined to do is, because GCAD would be my aggressive position today, just wait for EU. What's wrong with waiting for EU? So if I miss it, I won't miss anything that is not part of my plan. So for EU, we've got some structure points once Asia closes. So for me, this tells me I can't take EU as quick as I am now going to be looking to take GCAD. It's in front of me. What can I do? I can't do anything else with that. Why I like EU as well is that daily order block. Look how it held to perfection. Price came in yesterday, gave a wick to the downside, closed just there on that daily order block, and we're having a recovery now. So I think it would be nice to gauge a long position out in the market, but I can't see it just yet. I can't eyeball it, and I can't make it up. Therefore, what I'm going to need to see is some price action potentially develop, or even better, price just come into that desired 15-minute order block that I've done the work and refine the order block down anyway. I'll get rid of that to aid less confusion. But this is the place where I want to take the position from anyway. So I'd wait for price to come back down to these areas. Let me set my alert. And then at that stage, let's see if we can then have some snaps in the market towards the upside before taking price slightly higher. But for now, that's just one that I'm personally scoping. But as I say, it's not developed just yet. We've been very bearish into that area, and I can't see price in terms of structure just yet. Therefore, I'm going to have to wait for price to come at least down into its better point of interest, or alternatively, simply wait for price to start developing. But by the time that happens, I could be in that position for the short, and then looking at that weekly 50 EMA. I like the short. So GU and EU, although they're quite similar, they're incredibly opposite, because EU, I would love to take the short based on that weekly 50 MA. However, I quickly flip-flop back to GU. I would much prefer to take a long based on that weekly 50 MA. What I mean, previous candle closed above the weekly 50 MA. Therefore, I expect this current candle to want to close above that weekly 50 MA. Therefore, if I'm going to short, my range is only going to be towards that weekly 50 MA, because I'm expecting projection up towards the upside. That's why where current price is now, I would much prefer a long, because as a confluence, I'm using the weekly 50 EMA to take price slightly, well, to take price higher and close above it. So in contrast to that, EU is completely opposite. The most recent weekly candle closure on the weekly time frame, yes, it closed bullish, but it rejected the weekly 50 MA towards the downside. So I'm expecting this current candle also to reject that weekly 50 MA towards the downside. So for me, I don't mind missing the long position here on EU, but I really want to take the short position absolutely, and then the inverse on GU. So quite a decent observation there where two correlating pairs are actually quite dissimilar based on the weekly 50 MA. So that's what I've got for EU team. I think it's all right. But as I said, I much prefer the short position. US dollar JPY. Well, a bit of an annoying one. Again, just waiting for price really to pull back. These areas in the market have been absolutely obliterated as now price has made a higher high. However, why I'm still interested in UJ is higher time frame weekly order block. I am gauged towards looking for sells. Whether or not I believe that's correct based on the technicals on the DXY, that's separate. Let's first of all take into consideration what we have on UJ as a standalone pair. So, weekly order block, refine that area down. Oh, there's a chat. No problem, Rob. Thank you very much for joining, my friend. You have a good day. I'll get it recorded and posted in the chat for you guys to watch later. Weekly order block, refine that down. We've got the daily. So I do still see there is a little bit more room for UJ to potentially push towards the upside. However, do we have a wick imbalance? I'm seeing this here. We do. So we have a wick imbalance in the market where price is reacting to at the moment. So we're using that as a confluence to potentially take a sell position sooner than price is actually entering into that daily order block. So I have to see, based on using the wick imbalance, it doesn't mean immediate positions. What it means is we need to see price break down from that area before we get interested in taking that short position. So daily, discovered that daily order block perhaps towards the highs. 4 hour. It's not a bad looking chart to be honest, but it's quite difficult again based on structure. As a result of 4 hour time frame just moving towards the upside, we are not really seeing clear structure points. And it's a bit of a shame that this candle here closed above this order block, or else I would love to keep it on the chart. However, what we must be mindful of is this, although it's not something that we'd be or I'd be trading based on the higher time frame weekly order block towards the upside, I am still quite mindful of that, recognizing that actually we are simply making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and higher lows. So therefore, for me to take an immediate position short, I'm running into traffic straight away, and I'm also running into the trend in the opposite direction. So bearing in mind the options that I have, potential on GCAD, potential on GU and EU, UJ will probably just have a little sit on the back burner before waiting for price to really develop in a direction that I can trade it in. And currently, the only direction that I can trade UJ in is a short from that weekly order block. As a result of price being in that weekly order block, is what I'm trying to say. Therefore, what I'm going to need to do is identify structure on the lower time frames. That's going to be an aggressive approach, or the not so aggressive approach would be waiting for price to break down on the higher time frames, which would be that 4 hour time frame. And that's going to look like price breaking structure towards the downside, also breaking that 4 hour 50 MA where price is respecting beautifully at the moment. And then what that will look like is the same that I always disclose. It will look like a beautiful structure towards the downside. Wait for price to develop, pull back, area of interest, look for the short. So again, I like UJ. I see how it could develop, but there's just nothing at the moment for me. Whether or not I can take a long position, I can based on an Asia range. That's here already. 15-minute order block down at the lows. And my question that I need to ask myself, well, Charles, has this broken structure to the left? If I look to the left, we have a couple of structure points that have been broken, meaning that this is a high in the market. Coming back down, potential higher low for that higher high continuation based on the lower time frames. But most importantly, it's an Asia range type of setup. And then finally, do I have the range to take that how I want to take it? Recognition that that is a fixed target. UJ maximum of 20 pips stop loss. Do I still have a decent enough range? I'd say yes, I do. So what I'd be looking to do is wait for price to come back down to these areas. I'll be waiting for a lower time 1 minute break of structure, and that is a clean 1 minute break of structure. Leave me a 1 minute order block left behind, and I'll be looking to take a beautiful Asia range looking set up towards those highs based on the fact that structure overall is bullish on that 15-minute time frame, and that's not taking into consideration any of our higher time frame points of interest and analysis. That's just 15-minute only. So UJ, I like UJ, particularly that Asia range, nice looking Asia range in terms of the range that we actually have in the 15-minute order block. That's pretty concrete in the market. Just want to double check where I'd want to put my stop loss. I'd want to put it around there, to be quite honest. So run about 14 to 15 pips for me on UJ for that Asia range position. Well, being honest, I'd want to put it slightly lower, but then the risk to reward ratio wouldn't make sense. So I'm gonna have to bite the bullet there and then wait for the criteria in terms of 1 minute breaks of structure. That's UJ. Finally, AU. AU, AU, AU. So finally, we've had the breakdown on AU. It's quite annoying, but it is what it is, right? There was no setup. I was waiting for price to pull back into some of these areas. Even with that said, that would have still have been quite an aggressive position. You see the structure point in the market that caused the most recent high illustrated yesterday. So that's the high low confirmed. Therefore, in order to take this in the best type of scenario, got to wait for that high low to be broken, causing a first low in the market, then pull back for a lower high for a lower low continuation. Unfortunately, didn't get that at all. What I do see, however, is a little bit of an intricate break of structure, but I just really wasn't interested in taking a position like so, based on, so we have that there in the market, and then this in terms of an aggressive break of structure points here, and then what you would have said is, well, we had a break of structure down, pull back, short. But for me, it was just a little bit too aggressive. Um, I mean, I'm not a stranger to take positions like that, but as I mentioned, I'm away, and when I'm away, I recognize my concentration in terms of trading isn't as best as it should be. So taking those textbook type of positions are really the only way that I'm able to really say, right, well, although you're having good fun, are you trading correctly? And waiting for the textbook positions is always my best port of call when trading when I'm away. So here and now, where are we? We finally had a breakdown. We can certainly see that, but a breakdown into where? 4 hour order block. Now, this 4 hour order block, bit of a tricky one because we are certainly making lower lows in the market. That could well have been a lower high for a lower low continuation. However, we're not seeing that lower low continuation. In fact, what we are seeing is a rollback into this 4 hour order block that certainly did break immediate structure points to the left. So, of course, we're now seeing a reaction immediately from that area. And you've guessed it, with no pullback. Annoyingly, that refined area, 15-minute, that is still very much available. So it's a long day ahead. We'll see if price will gravitate back down towards that area before looking for a short position. Excuse me, long position. This 4 hour order block supported by the 4 hour 50 EMA as well as the daily 50 EMA towards the downside. I think that's a nice play. We finally had a breakdown in the market, break of structure. That should, well, okay, I've left that on there. Key structure point, which is now a break of structure. That makes more sense. I confused myself for a second then. And then just like what we had on GCAD, breakdown, lower low, lower high. Do we have a point of interest there available? 4 hour refined 15 is looking good for a short position. I quite like that based upon all the high time frames that we've got on side. Weekly order block looking to take price out of the market towards the short. I think that looks quite nice. We've got a good amount of confidence to support that short as well. So best I put an alert there and wait for that short position. Do I like the long? Well, not really based on the higher time frame analysis. Would I be interested in the long? Probably, based on what we've got here. But the long for me, it's not going to be anywhere aside from this 15-minute order block. So I really do need to wait for price to come back down to this area. Give me a lower time frame break of structure or even break immediate structure points on that 15-minute time frame before looking to take that long back up to where I'd like to take the desired short from. So overwhelmingly, longs are the favorite on AU today. And let's see what else I had as some good favorites. None else, to be quite honest. US dollar CAD. We are parabolic at the moment. We understand why the DXY is moving towards those highs. got that higher time frame daily order block, that price. It's just magical how it happens. Price came in. Let's see if I can get that out of the way. There we go. Price came into that high time frame daily order block, had to move away. Therefore, when price gravitates back towards, I'm expecting a reaction of some sort. This illustration from a couple of days ago, that's still in the market. On the base that wasn't really happy just to use a wick imbalance. That wasn't a strong wick imbalance that we'd like to usually see, and understood that price would more than likely want to gravitate towards the upside. What's nice to see as well on that weekly time frame is this break above. We've had that one for a few weeks now, at pretty much after this break. So we had that break of structure, high, 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 low. And there's that higher high continuation. So it's all making good sense at the moment. So can we get a reaction from US dollar CAD from that point of interest? In terms of the here and now, there is nothing at all that I can do on this pair. An aggressive approach, which is certainly not going to be happening, is a structure point based on Asia and a 15-minute order book that's being created simply as a result of price moving away. So do I foresee price going to turn around from there? I have no idea, but it's just on the chart for whatever reason. What I would be inclined to do is see if price will break this structure point, pull back into an area of interest, then provide us with that lower time frame break of structure for a potential short on US dollar CAD. Would I be taking that short? Probably not. Just because, well, I'm not going to say no to it completely. We have a good range towards the downside. We are trading out of a higher time frame order block. But what I'd really like to see first and foremost is just a bearish 4 hour candle. That bearish engulfing 4 hour candle will leave me nicely behind a 4 hour order block. What that will also do on the lower time frames is exactly this. It's going to give me that break of structure that I'm looking for, drawn to exaggeration. And then we'll just simply wait for price to pull back up into that area once we've had that break of structure. So that's what I'd really like to be waiting for. Anything sooner rather than that, or sooner than that rather, in my opinion, would be a very, very, very aggressive point of trading because, again, based on those lower time frames, i.e. the 15, I can't be sure where structure is. And if I can't be sure where structure is, it means I'm simply guessing because, let's face it, after this push in the market, this is a high. Here could be a high low for a high high. Here could be a high low for a high high. There could be a high high for a high low for a high high. As soon as this structure point is broken, that's just a structure point based on my illustration. The structure point could be anywhere. And until we start to see price really develop, for us to then understand where that structure point is, it's only at that stage we can say, okay, let's wait for the break and pull back. So waiting for price to develop first and foremost, I already seen. And I think the best protocol is to wait for that bearish 4 hour candle to close from that area. That certainly will deliver us with a very, very good break of structure on the lower time frames. And as well, we'd be using a 4 hour order block to start building our picture from, refined within this daily order block, hopefully as well. So team, that's all I'm looking at. GG, I'm not looking at that at all. Um, it's marked, but it's, well, we'll see. There's an alert. I'll alert you guys throughout the day if the alert gets triggered. But while we're here, we'll take a look at it. Higher time frame or higher time frame order block, weekly time frame, nothing at all. Absolutely nothing that we can look to play with. Then when we go to the daily time frame, it's not looking bad to be quite honest. We had that daily order block price came in and it just kind of hovered around the area. What I will add in fact, is a daily order block just here as a result of, in fact, let's keep it that color for a moment. As a result of that bearish engulfing candle coming out of the market yesterday. But what you'll see is where we've traded into, we've broken below that daily 50 MA. So I like the shorts now for at least today. When we start to refine this daily order block down, which I'll now delete because we know it's there, we are back up at these highs. So it's a very much so a patient approach for GJ, just waiting for price to return back to that point of interest before looking to take a short position. I also like the fact price has broken below that 4 hour 50 EMA. So it's a very looking textbook position to be quite honest. Had the break below on the daily, break below on the four, looking for, much like what we just said on US dollar CAD, wait for price to deliver you that 4 hour bearish engulfing candle to give you this type of play where we can say, okay, if price wants to come back, then I'll look for a short from that refined area. What I don't like on GJ and how I was avoiding it is for me, if you look at this kind of big picture wise, I can see high, high, high failed to break, low, low, and this area in the market. So for me at the moment, GJ is looking quite similar to a bit of a range being developed. And when I see it, and when I see that there are other pairs available that I could trade just so much with so much more ease and not have to guess a range or whether or not we are in a range or not. As soon as I'm seeing highs and lows like that, that you can really see clear in the market, I just kind of not zone out, but I just put it to the walls to back because I much prefer trading in a direction aside from trading in a range. But with that said, 4 hour order will up at the highs. Let me put that on the lower time frame so we can see exactly where it is. And then let's make that slightly bigger so we can see if there's a 15-minute order block in that area. There also is, but it's incredibly minute, like so. We'll put that across all markets. So that's the point of interest from the highs. Whether or not I'd want to be selling from there is a different kind of, it's a different question. And then down at the lows, would I mind taking a long position? Not really. You see how price is starting to develop. So we had point in the market, point in the market. That's essentially higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. So we are developing, but I'd still like price to come back down to this area, and that will look a lot cleaner. Would I take the short? Just gonna revisit that now so it's clear in my own head. I wouldn't mind the shorts, I'll be honest. GJ, higher time frame, close below the daily 50 MA, pull back short, 4 hour, 50 MA, respecting it towards the downside. So a candle that I'd need to see is going to be a 4 hour candle like so, pushing above that 4 hour 50 MA, reject it to the downside, leave me a wick towards the upside, entry on the wick. Yeah, I foresee that. 15-minute time frame. What were we doing? We were making, let's call it from here, high high, high low, high high, confirmed high low, break of structure, pull back, short. It's beautiful. It's textbook. Yeah, I'd love to take a short, and I wouldn't mind taking a long either. So, initial thoughts on GJ. We're gonna put it to the back burner, but I think it looks quite nice actually. So that's GJ. I'll shove it in there and we'll give it a nice looking amber. So that's all I've got, team. Thank you very much for joining me. Not sure when I'm back with you. Perhaps tomorrow or the day after, for a weekend breakdown, but I shall definitely keep you all posted in the chat. Thank you very much for joining me, or thank you very much for rewatching. Appreciate it as always. Take care and have a great trading day.